I am, as a public servant, completely financially divested of any conflicts of interest with any healthcare companies, any stocks, any lawsuits that I would financially benefit from. Are you?
Yes.
You're completely divested.
Yes.
You have no financial interest in any lawsuit, crypto, none of that.
No. Oh, okay. Crypto? I own Bitcoin.
Okay. And do you have any other securities or assets?
I don't. I mean, I had to go through this with the Office of Government Ethics, and I had a few interests that were very minor that I divested.
Okay, just checking. I'd always like to.
It's a good question.
I always like to know
what
the field is before I enter conversations. So thank you for that. In the healthcare space, something that we've both spoken to is that some of the worst actors are in the for-profit medical space. Are in for-profit health insurance, big pharma, et cetera. And one of the worst companies, actually, is United Healthcare in this respect. United Healthcare is the largest health insurance company in the country. They are the largest employer of doctors and own thousands of pharmacies, clinics, surgery centers, and home health agencies, as well as hospice providers. Secretary Kennedy, are you aware that President Trump's Department of Justice is reportedly investigating United Healthcare for criminal insurance fraud in some of their for-profit health insurance plans, like Medicare Advantage?
I'm not aware of that investigation.
You are not aware that the Trump Department of Justice is investigating the largest insurance company in America that
No, I'm not aware of.
For fraud in Medicare Advantage?
No, I'm not aware of that.
That you have jurisdiction over?
It doesn't surprise me.
Okay. In your submitted testimony, you said HHS takes seriously our role as responsible stewards of taxpayer dollars. Are you aware that for-profit insurance corporations like United Healthcare have been found to be defrauding public dollars of more than $80 billion a year?
I'm not aware of that number, but
You're
I'm
not
aware
aware
that
of
there's
that?
fraud across the for-profit sector.
Respectfully, Secretary Kennedy, if we're making decisions around waste, fraud, and abuse, this is the largest source of waste, fraud, and abuse of public dollars in the public insurance space.
You say $80 million?
$80 billion a year.
80, did you say 80 million or 80 billion?
80 with a B, billion.
With a B,
yeah. If that's the case, why did you nearly double the rate that taxpayer dollars give for-profit insurance companies like United next year, if you don't know those things?
Double the rate? How did I do that?
So your agency nearly doubled the taxpayer dollars that for-profit insurance corporations like United will be paid next year, meaning these companies, the largest of whom is under investigation, criminal investigation by the Trump administration, will be receiving an additional $25 billion from your agency.
How is that happening?
I would be happy to submit to the congressional record evidence of this. I will enter the CMS press release from April 7th of 2025 into the record, which states that Medicare Advantage corporations will now receive a 5.06% increase in payments next year under your jurisdiction, Mr. Secretary.
Well,
this is up from 2.2%.
I mean, we're raising
Without
which was
objection.
proposed from the Biden administration. You are doubling the rate that the Biden...
The gentlelady's
these
time has
criminally
expired.
investigated companies.
The gentlelady's time has
receiving.
expired. The chair now recognizes the gentleman from Michigan, Representative James, for 5 minutes of questioning.
Mr. Speaker, I want the American people to know, with eyes wide open, what is inside this bill.
This measure, first introduced by Representative Mike Collins, would require ICE detention for illegal aliens who are charged with, arrested for, or convicted of any burglary, theft, larceny, or shoplifting offense. Now, the Democrats have argued that, well, mere accusation of committing a crime should not be grounds for detention, and besides, shoplifting's no big deal. Well, they ignore the fact that every illegal alien is currently required to be detained by current law. Laken Riley was killed while going for a jog. That's the issue. An innocent woman who never did anything to anybody harmful in her life, that wanted to be a nurse, that wanted to help other people, that couldn't even get the last damn telephone call from her mother, was murdered. And then I hear from the ranking member, well, the vast majority of illegals don't commit crimes. My God, I hope not, because we've got close to 10 million of them as best we can tell, but there are hundreds that were on the terror watch list, thousands that have committed crimes and where the problems really do exist, and that's unacceptable.
We stand here just 2 days after President Trump gave unconditional pardons to violent criminals who attacked our nation's capital on January 6th. And these are the people who want you to believe, who want us to believe that they're trying to, quote unquote, keep criminals off the streets. When they are opening the floodgates. I want the American people to know what is in this bill. Because in the guise and in the wake of tragedy, we are seeing a fundamental erosion of our civil rights. In this bill, if a person is so much as accused of a crime, if someone wants to point a finger and accuse someone of shoplifting, they will be rounded up and put into a private detention camp and sent out for deportation without a day in court, without a moment to assert their right and without a moment to assert the privilege of innocent until proven guilty. Without being found guilty of a crime, they will be rounded up. That is what is inside this bill, a fundamental suspension of a core American value. And that is why I rise to oppose it. If you're a dreamer, all someone has to do is point a finger and you will be rounded up. And we have seen moments like these happen before. In the Patriot Act, in the wake of the travesty of 9/11, a fundamental suspension of American civil liberties. That is what we are seeing here today. Mr. Speaker, you may wonder why so many of our friends across the aisle who care so deeply about the rule of law happen to be so desperate to pass this bill, after they are unleashing people who attacked police officers here on this Capitol into roaming our streets, who are publicly saying now they want to get a gun. Suddenly, these folks care about public safety? I don't think so. Look no further than the price tag of this bill, $83 billion. They know that it can't be paid for. They know that the capacity is not there. And you know what will be there? Private prison companies are going to get flooded with money, who give this money, no doubt. I want folks at home to look. Look at what members of Congress are invested in private prison companies who receive this kind of money, and look at the votes on this bill. It is atrocious that people are lining their pockets with private prison profits in the name of a horrific tragedy and the victim of a crime. It is shameful. It is absolutely shameful. And Mr. Speaker, I'll conclude with this. In a few months, there are members of Congress who voted for this bill who are going to pretend they didn't know about all the bad things that are going to happen because of it. So when a private prison camp opens in your town, when a dreamer...
Time has expired.
I yield the gentlelady an additional 30 seconds.
So when a private prison camp opens in your town, and they say, we didn't know this was going to happen, know that they did, and they voted for it. When a dreamer is disappeared from your classroom, when the President of the United States destroys what is left of the Constitution, as he's announced in this attack on birthright citizenship, they will all say, we didn't know this was coming. And I want the American people to know that they did. This vote represents it. And with that, I yield back. Thank you very much. President Trump had issued some statements throughout this process saying and urging, insisting that this bill does not cut Medicaid. He's also said some things, he says he doesn't think I'm too much of a smart person. And I'll tell you one thing. It doesn't take a smart person to know if you're being lied to. All right. President Trump, you're either being lied to or you are lying to the American people. because this bill represents, in the text of this bill, the largest and greatest loss of health care in American history. 17 million Americans will lose their health care on this bill, not undocumented people, not quote unquote the disgusting term illegal, but 17 million Americans will have their health care cut from this bill. On this point of tax on tips, as one of the only people in this body who has lived off of tips, I want to tell you a little bit about the scam of that text, a little bit of the fine print there. The cap on that is $25,000. While you're jacking up taxes on people who make less than $50,000 across the United States, while taking away their SNAP, while taking away their Medicaid, while kicking them off of the ACA and their health care extensions. So if you're at home and you're living off tips, you do the math. Is that worth it to you? Losing all your health care, not able to feed your babies, not being able to put a diaper on their bottom in exchange for what? This bill is a deal with the devil. It explodes our national debt. It militarizes our entire economy, and it strips away health care and basic dignity of the American people. For what? To give Elon Musk a tax break and billionaires the greedy taking of our nation. We cannot stand for it, and we will not support it. You should be ashamed.
If you actually listen carefully, every once in a while they let the mask slip about what they actually think about us. You know, just last week, President Trump's lawyer, her name is Alina Habba, she went on television, and when she actually had to be faced with explaining her job, and when she actually had to be faced with doing her job, this is what she had to say.
And I love when AOC lectures Elon Musk about not being intelligent. I'm like, oh, she's such a genius. You know, I'm inspired by her every word.
You were in the bar. You were in a bar.
Yeah.
You were in a bar, AOC.
Well, that's the only thing she and I have in common.
To serve one.
Exactly. All right.
I want you to understand that she isn't just talking about me here. She's talking about you. She's talking about all of us. Because the entire job of the president's lawyer is to speak for him. Trump hired her to speak for him. So imagine what it means for our country that the president's own lawyer cannot even conceive of a working class person being intelligent simply because of the job that they have. This woman could not even recognize the American dream if it was fed to her on a silver spoon. But understand that this kind of disdain for working people by the most powerful people in this country doesn't just come from not being raised right. It's a shorthand for Elon Musk and Donald Trump's entire political agenda and a certain ugly kind of politics, lying to and screwing over working people so that they can steal from our health care and Social Security and veterans care to pay for tax cuts for the wealthiest and bailouts for their crypto billionaire friends.
This bill is cutting nearly $1 trillion in Medicaid spending overall. Why? Because down the hallway, they are trying to finance tax cuts for people who are inheriting $22 million houses. Because in 2017, Republicans and the Trump administration tried to increase the exemption of what you get a tax break on. If you used to inherit an $11 million house, you would get no taxes. You had no taxes on that, in that estate tax. They said that's not enough. We need no taxes on a $22 million house.
Will the gentlelady yield?
Expired, I have to finish. That expires now. And it costs a lot of money to extend that tax break up to $22 million. So to pay for that, They are doing this. They are modeling and completely retrofitting the United States Medicaid system to model it after the state with the third most catastrophic uninsured American number in the country. In the dead of night at 2:38 in the morning, when everyone is asleep, when we've asked for the opportunity to do this in the light of day so that people can call their representatives' offices in order to stop this disaster. So let's be crystal clear about what's going on right now, because it's not so-called illegals who do not receive a dime in federal Medicaid dollars. That is a tall tale. Being nice today. And with that, I yield back.
The gentlelady yields back. The chair recognizes the gentleman from Texas, Mr. Weber, for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm going to yield back to you.
Thank you. I appreciate that. The number one goal of this bill is to make clear that if you're working, that the process can work to make sure that you keep your health insurance.
Mr. Chairman, I have a
Make sure you
question.
keep your health insurance. But at the end of the day, we believe that it's the right thing to make Medicaid coverage for able-bodied adults, just like insurance for every other American.
Will the chair
You've
yield
got
for
to
a question?
work to keep it.
Will the chairman yield for a question?
Actually, at time now, you want to keep going, Mr. Chairman? All right. We'll yield to the gentlelady.
Thank you. In terms of some of the exemptions, pregnancy is covered, correct?
May I interrupt? I'm glad you're addressing us instead of speaking to the camera.
Yeah.
Keep going.
Pregnancy is covered, correct? Yes. As an exemption? I have a question. Given the Dobbs decision and the fact that many women in many states are forced to be
All right,
carrying.
I'm gonna have to stop. I'm gonna reclaim my.
Okay,
my-
what about
reclaiming my time.
miscarriage?
Thank you.
What about miscarriage?
I'm reclaiming my time. Thank you. I just want to make the point that we'd like for you to address the Republicans and let's have a dialogue
Okay.
this way and not to a camera. Mr. Chairman, I yield back.
But
The gentleman yields,
wait,
gentleman yields back.
But I'm asking the question, what about a miscarriage?
The gentleman
I'm
yields
trying to
back.
engage in the way that the gentleman
The lady is
requested me
out
to.
of order. The gentleman yields back.
Oh, so we don't want to
Chair,
answer
is
for
there
women having
someone on the
miscarriages and
Democratic
bleeding out in
side
parking
who
lots.
looks to
Okay.
be recognized?
We've had this conversation around the specific words that Republicans would like to use, like shifting. If I was in an office and I was shifting an employee, I'd be shifting them to another role or to another office. I don't hear the Republicans talking about where they're shifting these individuals to. Off Medicaid to what program? Because it's not just Medicaid, it's also the ACA, right? So you're making it harder for people to have health care, and you're not telling anyone where they're going to be shifted to. So if someone relies on Medicaid, right, and now they have these work requirements, this red tape, right, that like in Georgia, like in Arkansas, boots people from Medicaid, right, where are you, quote, shifting them to, right? And you haven't made that point clear at all or spoken to the American people who rely on Medicaid, who rely on the ACA expansion to know where they're going to go. And that's why they're so worried, and that's why we're so worried for them, because we know you're not reinvesting in the program. We know that you have no alternative to Medicaid or the ACA, and that's what's so alarming. And until you can answer those questions, we're going to keep calling out what harm this will do. But I want to yield to my colleague from New York, because I think she was about to touch on some really important questions that the American people need to hear.
Thank you so much. I think my colleague from New Jersey, it seems as though I touched on something that was sensitive for the majority. But this is an important question. Many of us, we're here in Congress. This is a body that is less than 30% female, so it is not uncommon that many of my colleagues are unfamiliar with our biology and the needs for 50% of Americans. Since the majority did not seem interested in answering the question, I would like to pose a question to council. Able-bodied American. Obviously, if you're pregnant, you are covered under the exemption, correct?
That is correct.
If you are not pregnant, you would not be covered under the pregnancy exemption, correct?
That is correct.
So if a woman miscarries, she would then be kicked off the exemption, correct?
The exemption also includes postpartum coverage.
Postpartum, miscarriage. Is miscarriage covered under that?
If a state includes miscarriage under postpartum coverage, then yes.
Federally, in this statute, is miscarriage explicitly included in the language of the text?
The bill includes postpartum coverage as an exemption.
Miscarriage is not listed, correct?
If a miscarriage by a state is included in postpartum coverage, then yes.
Is miscarriage explicitly included in the text of the bill?
It is not explicitly stated in the text.
Thank you very much. I think this is tremendously important for my colleagues to understand because President Trump nominated anti-abortion, anti-choice Supreme Court justices that now, because of the Dobbs ruling, have forced women to carry not just carry out miscarriages, traumatic miscarriages, which can be debilitating, life-threatening, and then on top of it, could potentially endanger their insurance status. Sit with that. Thank you. Will the gentlelady yield?
I will yield.
Thank you so much. And speaking of where we are addressing and who we are addressing, there are 13.7 million Americans on the other side of that screen right there. Hello? Hello. I'm talking to you because I work for you. And they deserve to see what is happening here. Because there are plenty of districts, including Republican ones, where 25% of your constituents are on Medicaid, 40% of your constituents are on Medicaid. And yes, I am talking.
Will the gentlelady yield?
I am talking to them, and I will not yield because it was a terribly disrespectful comment, and I will not yield to disrespectful men. Thank you very much.
You yield back?
We'll yield back to the gentlelady.
Yes, I yield to the doctor from California.
Today, the Republican House Majority brought to the floor a resolution honoring, quote, honoring the life and legacy of Charlie Kirk. Charlie Kirk's assassination was a horrific and vile attack and incident of political violence. And condemning the depravity of Kirk's brutal murder is a straightforward matter, one that is especially important to help stabilize an increasingly unsafe and volatile political environment where everyday people feel more at risk. We can deeply disagree and come together as a country to denounce the horror of this killing. And it is not a license for the abuse of power and whitewashing of American history. Today's resolution only underscores the majority's recklessness by choosing to author this condemnation and honoring on a purely partisan basis, instead of uniting Congress in this tragedy with one of the many bipartisan options to condemn political violence and Kirk's murder, as we did with the late Melissa Hortman. Instead, the majority proceeded with a resolution that brings great pain to the millions of Americans who endured segregation, Jim Crow, and the legacy of bigotry today. We should be clear about who Charlie Kirk was. A man who believed that the Civil Rights Act that granted Black Americans the right to vote was a mistake, who after the violent attack on Paul Pelosi claimed that, quote, some amazing patriot, unquote, should bail out his brutal assailant, and accused Jews of controlling, quote, not just the colleges, it's the nonprofits, it's the movies, it's Hollywood, it's all of it, unquote. His rhetoric and beliefs were ignorant, uneducated, and sought to disenfranchise millions of Americans, far from the working, quote, working tirelessly to promote unity, unquote, asserted by the majority in this resolution. It is equally important that Congress does unite to reject the government's attempt to weaponize this moment into an all-out assault on free speech across the country, all in the name of Charlie Kirk, President Trump and the FCC are now cynically threatening to shut down ABC and any outlets who give airtime to the administration's political critics. This is a disgusting attack on the American people and the very First Amendment rights that define us as a country. It is also the ABC Corporation's responsibility to refuse to embolden and participate in this corruption and escalation of censorship. We continue to pray for Mr. Kirk's family and loved ones in the wake of this terrible act. I am thinking especially of his children and his wife, whose grief cannot be measured. And with that, I yield back to the gentleman.
I bid the lady good day.
Governor Walz, I just have to say, I know you're getting a lot of grief from the majority here, but we are talking about individuals who have cheered on an individual who issued a Nazi salute from behind the presidential seal of the United States of America, who have cheered on the pardoning of individuals who attacked the United States Capitol and flew a Nazi flag and the flag of the Confederacy, traitors to the United States, sworn enemies of the United States of America, through the capital of this nation. And now they want to act offended because someone has the courage to say, if it walks like a duck and it talks like a duck, maybe it's a duck. So I want to thank you for not wavering to their bullying, which is unconscionable and sad to see. So I just wanted to let you know that, Governor. Thank you.
Thank you, Congresswoman.
To the three of you, Governor Walz, Governor Pritzker, and Governor Hochul, you three have each sworn an oath to uphold and defend the Constitution of the United States of America, correct? I'll start with you.
Yes.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, I have.
And I imagine that also includes the Fourth and Fifth Amendment protections for due process and the rule of law.
It does.
Sure does.
Yes.
And that means protecting your people in your states, U.S. citizens and every individual, because that is what makes America great, that we are a land of the free and of rule of law, to protect them from infringements of their civil liberties, correct? Now, what we are seeing is a pattern where ICE is breaking the law. We have the detention of a U.S. citizen who has been detained by immigration officials. We have ICE here that has also blamed and arrested U.S. citizens for being simply suspected of being an immigrant, largely because of their appearance. In January, a Chicago-based U.S.-born citizen, Julio Noriega, was arrested by ICE and held in custody for over 10 hours. In April, a Florida Highway Patrol officer pulled over Juan Carlos Lopez Gomez, a United States-born citizen, and arrested him on suspicion of being in the country illegally. He had his real ID, his Social Security card, his mother presented his birth certificate, and they still didn't let him go. In May, U.S. citizen Leonardo Garcia Venegas was filming an ICE raid. He was arrested by ICE. In May, a veteran and U.S. citizen who is Puerto Rican, was detained during an ICE raid at his workplace in New York City. That's called a paper bag test. And your job, Governor Hochul, is to protect people from that kind of infringement, correct?
Yes.
Because all of us must adhere to the law, and no one is above it. So if a U.S. citizen tries to break the law, or if an ICE officer tries to break the law, your job is to uphold the law, correct?
We absolutely uphold the laws of the United States Constitution and the Constitution of the state of New York.
And sanctuary states are about U.S. citizens as well, having sanctuary against the attacks on our constitutional rights from illegal search and seizure. There is nothing preventing ICE from issuing a warrant and you having complete compliance with their request. Correct, Governor Hochul?
We comply in cases where there's been criminal activity alleged. Yes, we always do. But we're not involved in civil immigration enforcement because our state police that I control have to deal with other crimes that they're solving.
And apologies, I just have 10 seconds left. But when they say illegal versus legal immigration, they are trying to end legal status in the United States as well. Correct, Governor Pritzker, with the end of TPS and making people undocumented by removing legal status, ending legal status, and then having the audacity to call them illegal when they were here documented, correct?
Taking students' visas away from people, taking their legal right to be in the United States away from them when they've been granted maybe years earlier to stay.
So I don't want to hear about how this is about illegal versus legal immigration. They are attacking legal status and removing legal status. The Republican majority is anti-legal immigration in the United States. And I want to make that very clear, and I yield back. 13.7 million Americans. 13.7 million Americans are the number of people in this country whose health care are going to be stripped in this bill. Now, Republicans are going to try to tell you every single distraction in the book from that essential number. I want people at home to understand that Medicaid and the federal matching funds for Medicaid can make up 30 to 40% of some of the state budgets that we have going on back in your home. Republicans have put this bill together, rushed it together in a matter of hours on the back of a napkin, shaking it, walking out of the White House, and brought it right here to this floor. They are defunding Planned Parenthood. They are ending tons of Medicaid coverage for 13.7 million Americans, including Affordable Care Act coverage as well. And if you want to get an abortion and have a silver plan on a health care plan that you paid for, you will also be affected by this legislation as well. Also, allowing suppressors on guns to be deregulated to some of the largest amounts that we have seen since the 1930s. This is just a Christmas bill. This is just a Christmas tree.
I yield the gentlelady to 30 seconds.
And so I want people to understand, for my Republican colleagues who are sure what is in and not in this bill, in this process that has been this rushed, when you wake up in the morning, you will realize that you voted to defund Planned Parenthood and to take away health care from 13.7 million Americans. And when this country wakes up in the morning, there will be consequences to pay for this. And I yield back.
You know, I think it's important to, one of the comments that was made earlier is this idea that our concerns around our medical systems and research is unsubstantiated, that it's, quote, been just a week.
Let us remind you, it has been barely a week since these notices went out. The American people clearly support the president's goals of eliminating government waste and bloat, and they want us to streamline our regulatory bodies. So before jumping to unsubstantiated claims that these cuts will hinder such innovation and research or negatively impact our preparedness and response infrastructure, let us take a moment to look and see what further action the administration takes to improve the efficiency, the transparency, and overall effectiveness of our public health system.
As someone who represents a large hospital network that receives a lot of research funds, telling people to wait, that it's just been a week, that we don't need to be so concerned, I think you should tell that to someone with an experimental pacemaker that's inserted in their body right now whose research is now imperiled. We've got folks in these systems, researchers, people who support this research that have just been laid off, people with medical devices, experimental medical devices, implanted in their body that have been abandoned due to this reckless idea that we can just come in and lay off dozens of public servants as though their work does not matter, as though it has no impact on everyday people.
as though these breakthroughs are not in peril. The way that scientific research works, you can't just blip things and turn things off. Cancer research, medical research, short-term research, cell cultures, these are not things that you can just take out of a fridge, dump it, and put it back in again. Companies, when we talk about innovation in our treatments, companies are working to try to get these treatments approved. And these kinds of blips and delays and disruptions in sensitive scientific processes may force these experiments to start all over again, delaying approvals by months, if not even years. This amendment is very simple. It is not asking for extra dollars. It is not asking for large changes. It is not asking for structural shifts. It is saying that we need to examine these disruptions and the impacts that they have been having on everyday people to make sure that people are still safe. And respectfully, as it pertains to the FDA already being mentioned in oversight plans, in previous oversight plans, one thing that is not included in previous oversight plans that is different from today is DOGE. DOGE did not exist 2 years ago. 19-year-olds were not raiding the Treasury 2 years ago. People who have no idea with medical background have not been hauling in and creating kangaroo courts for scientists to dismiss them 2 years ago. That started happening now. Elon Musk is not a scientist. He is not an engineer. He is a billionaire con man with a lot of money. He does not have this kind of good background. And in fact, while there's some disruption over that, I sincerely ask you all to examine what expertise he has in approving medical devices, in biomedical engineering devices. And if you all think that he is an expert in that, I've got a bridge to nowhere to sell you. These are people's lives that are on the line, and we cannot laugh them away. Genuinely, please, I am asking you to please support this amendment for the people who have medical devices stuck in their body. Thank you, and I yield back. Are you familiar with how many Americans are employed by the energy efficiency sector nationally?
I am not.
It's about 2.3 million workers. About 2 out of every 5 energy jobs in the United States are related to energy efficiency. Can you guess what is the fastest growing category of energy efficiency work in the United States?
I'm not particularly good at guessing.
That's all right.
So, yes.
It's construction.
Okay.
So these are construction jobs. Energy efficiency jobs are construction jobs, installation, production, manufacturing, HVAC, building materials, all of it. Now, do you know how many jobs have been threatened or lost due to the Trump administration's closures of clean energy projects in the last 6 months or so, the first half of this year?
I'm not aware of any such analysis.
91,000. Trump administration and Department of Energy policies have cost Americans 91,000 jobs nationwide in rollbacks on efficiency. And, you know, these large numbers are statistics. They're hard to, I think, people to understand when they show up on a white paper. But in Colorado's 8th district, Amprius Technologies canceled plans to construct a $190 million battery plant in Brighton, Colorado. In that same district, actually, another company, VSK Energy, canceled plans due to the Trump administration, canceled their plans to build solar panels, and they scratched a $250 million investment and up to 900 jobs in that same district. In Georgia 12, an EV plant was canceled due to the Trump administration and DOE's freezing of the EV charging program. Registered Georgia has a population of 157 people. They lost out on 166 jobs. They lost more jobs than they have people in that town because of the cancellation and war on renewable energy and clean energy here. In that same district, a copper foil manufacturing plant went bankrupt as a result of these rollbacks, and Augusta, Georgia lost out on 350 jobs. And I mean, the list goes on. In South Carolina, 250 jobs when a construction of an EV plant in Florence was halted due to DOE's freezing of funds. I mean, we could go on. In Michigan 10th, 167 jobs were lost after $50 million worth of investment. These are all freezes in renewable and clean energy construction and development projects. This is an industry that has been a source of jobs and growth. This administration, the Trump administration, is destroying the American economy, destroying American jobs. 91,000 jobs in this sector alone. I have one simple question. In these towns and areas, what is the DOE's plan to replace those jobs in those affected areas?
I'll say this is beyond the scope of what I'm prepared to testify to today. I'd be happy to take the question for the record in regard to the analysis that you cited here in regard to job loss.
So in your view, you're the general counsel for the Department of Energy, that's correct?
Acting.
Acting. And in all that you've seen, have you seen any effort to replace these jobs that are being canceled by the administration?
I have not. I'm not sure that would
have
come
not.
my way. But
So we're seeing a concerted effort, 91,000 jobs already gone. Now, this is after the administration has also already released a revised report saying we have 1 million less jobs in this economy than there was originally reported. We're actively killing plants and projects in rural places across this country. And I'm hearing today that there's no effort to replace them. And my time is up. I yield back.
And if you would, just in writing, answer the lady's question, the general lady's question. Thank you.
yes, I can't answer the question because I haven't seen the analysis, but I'd be happy to take the question for the record.
So I started hosting Know Your Rights seminars for the community because following the law is not just for U.S. citizens, it's for ICE too, and they need to follow the law as well. And so when you know what the law is and what your rights are, you can enforce those rights. So I was hosting a lot of these Know Your Rights seminars throughout the district. And Tom Homan, who was the acting director of ICE, who was later allegedly reported to be taking $50,000 in cash in kava bags, whatever, allegedly, according to some of this reporting. But back then, Tom Homan decides that he's going to try to threaten me. And he's going to say, I'm going to request that the Department of Justice open an investigation onto you, a legal investigation onto you into aiding and abetting crime.
What I find disturbing is that any member of Congress wants to educate people how they evade law enforcement. You can claim you're educating those constitutional rights. Okay, you can keep that claim. But what she in fact is doing is telling people don't open your door, hide in your home, don't talk to ICE. We're talking about people who are in the country illegally, committed a crime, they're a public safety threat, they've been convicted of serious crime, and they've been ordered removed by a federal judge. So it's like AOC and others don't want ICE to enforce the laws that they enacted. I've asked DOJ, where is that line of impediment, of interference? Now, if someone stands in your way, prevents you from arresting somebody, put your hands on you, that's impediment. But what line is telling people to hide from ICE, not open the door? Where do you cross that line on impediment? So I've simply asked the Department of Justice, give us that line.
You have talked to them about this. That's what you're saying?
Absolutely.
Excuse me? Aiding and abetting crime. We are aiding and abetting the prevention of crime because people need to know their rights so that their rights aren't violated. So anyways, he goes on and makes this huge public announcement about how he wants to target me for a federal investigation. That's a very serious thing, right? This guy has a lot of power, right? He was the acting director of ICE. He has a direct line to Pam Bondi at the Department of Justice, a department of whose actual respect for the law is eroding by the day.
And it doesn't matter whether it's legal or not. It doesn't matter if it's right or not. They have the power and they are positioned to abuse their power and to open such a thing on totally baseless grounds that even if it's false, they can try to do that, right? And so that's a scary thing. So I can respond to that by being scared and stopping my Know Your Rights seminars, right? Pulling back. But I didn't, because this guy is a joke. I am using clean language on this live, but this guy is a joke. Kristi Noem is a joke. J.D. Vance, the vice president of the United States, went behind a podium and went, boo-hoo-hoo, the shutdown is AOC's fault, as though this man isn't vice president of the United States of America. You know what I have to say to that? You look like a clown back there. You're the second most powerful person in this country, and you're crying about me? And you're blaming the whole government shutdown on me? LOL, my guy. Like, laugh at them. Make them small. These people seek out and abuse all of this power because they want to feel big. They want to feel bigger than you. They crush immigrant communities, not because these people are criminals. Mind you, look at ICE activity. They are not going after criminals. They are going after kids. There was a 7-year-old in my district that got taken by ICE. A 7-year-old. A 7-year-old. And I've been doing what I can to try to intervene in that case. I can't speak to it, but like a 7-year-old. These people do this in order to make themselves feel powerful, because deep, deep, deep down inside, they feel and know how small they are. And in order for a small person to feel big, they have to crush someone else. And like that is what their whole political identity is all about. It is about this forced supremacy that is based on nothing, because they feel and know how small they actually are. And instead of actually fixing the things that are making them so small and insufficient, they have to pick on someone, or they have to pick on communities that have no one defending them. That's what this is all about. This whole thing, this whole fight about, Democrats are shutting down the government because they want healthcare for illegal immigrants. First of all, totally false. Second of all, when they, as I've said before, federal law prevents undocumented people from getting covered by ACA insurance, Medicaid, etc., right? They are trying to come back with this tiny loophole, being like, oh, but there are some federal funds that could possibly on the state level, da-da-da. You know what they're actually pointing to is that Ronald Reagan in the 1980s, the United States passed a law that said if you walk into an ER, a hospital cannot refuse you care if you can't afford it, if you're not covered. Because we decided that we wanted to be a civilized country, that if someone gets hit by a car and they're bleeding out, that a doctor isn't checking for their insurance coverage before they go rush into an emergency room. Like that you are treating the human being first, because we don't want to live in, trust me, regardless of your stances on immigration, you do not want to live in a country where that law is reversed. I guarantee you that. I guarantee you that. And so they're trying to whatever, the point is that they are scrapping and grasping at straws because they have nothing else. Laugh at them. Stephen Miller is a clown. I've never seen that guy in real life, but he looks like he's 4'10", and he looks
like he is angry about the fact that he's 4'10". And he looks like he is so mad that he is 4'10", that he's taking that anger out at any other population possible. Like, laugh at them. Laugh at them. Yes, they are dangerous. Yes, we're here to be strong for one another. We need to expose the lies. We need to never let off the gas when it comes to protecting one another, exposing the lies, documenting things. We're seeing this too, right? And so I think it's very important to be able to hold multiple things at once. And we've seen this work in other cultures. We've seen this work in other countries. Yes, the resistance to authoritarianism is very real. The risks of abuse of power are very real. But one of the most powerful cultural things that you can do to a political movement that is predicated on the puffery of insecure masculinity. That's what this is about. This isn't, people talk about toxic masculinity. More than, it's like, let's put that to the side for just 1 second. This is about insecure masculinity. And one of the best ways that you can dismantle a movement of insecure men is by making fun of them. By having secure men who aren't afraid of successful people around them, who are good dads, who have strong values, also participating in that as well. So like, that's what I have for that. And also someone said, short kings are great. Absolutely. I'm not here. I want to absolutely make sure that I talk about that. I'm not here to make fun of anyone's anything, but the way people overcompensate over their own stories is what I'm talking about there. So thank you for the clarification. I appreciate that. Shout out to our short kings. Now, this bill was almost passed on December 17th within a bigger package to prevent the government shutting down. It has all of our support. For folks following at home, Democrats supported it. Republicans supported it. So why isn't this moving? It's not because there's no substance for it. All 4 witnesses testifying today are in support of it. Republicans are in support. Democrats are in support. So what happened? Well, on December 17th at 4:15 in the morning, Elon Musk began firing off a barrage of social media posts opposing pharmacy benefit manager reform, PBM reform. And all of a sudden, this bill that had almost unanimous support fell apart in a matter of hours. And the vote was postponed on that day. After he tweets, it gets canceled. Elon Musk tweets, we have nearly 435 members of Congress all on board of it. He sends one tweet and all of a sudden, everyone backs off. And it kills drug pricing reform that saves people money on their insulin, on their asthma inhalers, on everything that they need. And then to kick it off, 5 days after he kills pharmacy benefit manager reform, we get this tweet from Elon Musk. What is a pharmacy benefit manager? This was at 1:02 a.m. on December 31st of 2024, 5 days or so, a couple days after he kills the bill. So the problem here is not a substance issue. It's not a process issue. It's an oligarchy issue. It's a power issue. And this room is where the power of the people of the United States reside. Whether you're a Democrat or you're a Republican, everyone here was elected to be accountable to the people of the United States, not to be governed by tweet, but to be governed by their duly elected representation. And so we can get this done because there are more of us than there are of him. So I would love a commitment from our Republican counterparts who we agree with on this issue
to just put it on the floor and let us vote for it where there is bipartisan agreement and we can actually get a result of for the American people by booting this guy out from political influence. And with that, I yield back. Mayor Adams, on January 31st of 2025, your attorneys met with federal prosecutors regarding the charges of bribery, campaign finance fraud, and conspiracy against you. Were you aware of this meeting prior to its occurrence?
Congresswoman, as
Microphone, please.
I'm sorry. As I stated to your colleagues, and I'm going to continue to state because we're asking the same question over and over again.
This is a new question.
This case is in front of Judge Ho, and out of deference to
I
our
understand,
criminal justice
Mayor Adams.
process, I'm going to
Mayor Adams,
defer this
as your
to the
counsel,
court.
I'm sure will inform you. The only permissible way to refuse to answer a question during a congressional proceeding such as this is by pleading the Fifth Amendment. Deference to the judge is not a permissible excuse for not answering questions during a congressional hearing. Is it your intention to plead the Fifth today?
Councilwoman, you said the only way that you can't answer a question is to plead the Fifth. I am answering your question. I'm answering your question directly. That
You are not, Mayor Adams.
Okay, I believe I am.
I will ask it again. Were you aware of the meeting between your attorneys and federal prosecutors on January 31st? Answering this question is a yes or a no.
And I'm going to answer it again. Out of deference to Judge Ho, with this case in
That is
front
not an
of,
answer, Mayor Adams.
He is going to deal with the outcome of the case.
Mayor Adams, is it your intention to not comply with these questions?
As I stated, I'm answering your questions, and what you're doing, let's be clear on, you're asking me about communications between my attorney and I. And I don't think that is appropriate to be asking a question between my attorney and I, because we are in a country of law and order.
I understand.
And your
So, Mayor
relationship
Adams,
and
who
communications
is
with your attorney should be respected.
Who is your attorney?
Alex Spiro.
Alex Spiro, thank you. Now, Mayor Adams, have your attorneys ever met with city officials? That is not covered. I'm not asking about your conversations with your attorneys. Have your attorneys met with city officials, New York City officials?
Any communication or activity between my attorney
yes or
and I
no?
is
Have
up to
your
our attorney and I.
personal
You can reach out
attorneys
to,
met with New York City officials?
Alex Spiro, my attorney, to deal with those communications.
Mayor Adams, in this meeting, did anyone representing you, including perhaps Mr. Spiro, agree or allude to any arrangement with the Trump administration that would involve changing city policies in exchange to reconsideration of the charges brought against you?
You say in this meeting? Can you be clear?
In the January 31st meeting.
Again, there was never any agreement, never any quid pro quo. And
That's not what I'm
nothing
asking.
wrong. Never any agreement, never any quid pro quo.
Was there an allusion
and
to a shift
that
in
I've
New York
done
City
wrong.
policy?
Gentlelady's time's expired. And I just want to remind her, Mayor Adams is here voluntarily, and we appreciate that. The topic of the hearing is about our illegal alien problem and the drain on the cities and what the solution is. So Chair now recognizes Mr. McGuire from Virginia.
Mayor Adams, are you aware that the former acting U.S. Attorney Danielle Sassoon was present at the January 31st meeting between your lawyers and federal prosecutors?
As I stated, and you, Congresswoman, you appear to want to ask the question over and over again, and so I could only
No,
give
these
you
are
the
very different
appropriate question
questions.
over and over again. That this
Okay,
case
I
is
understand.
under
Mayor
Judge
Adams, are
Ho,
you not
and
answering
Joe
this
Ho
question because you believe
be
you will
able to
incriminate
respond
yourself?
to the movement
I
of this
understand.
case. I
Mr.
in
Chairman, I
deference to
would
him,
like
I
to
would like
submit
have him
to
handle
the
it.
congressional record Danielle Sassoon's resignation letter from the U.S. Attorney.
Without objection to order.
Thank you so much. In her letter, the former acting U.S. Attorney, a registered Republican, a former clerk for Antonin Scalia, was appointed by President Trump to serve as acting U.S. Attorney was present at the January 31st meeting between Mayor Adams' attorneys and federal prosecutors. After that meeting with attorneys, the acting U.S. attorney resigned rather than dismiss the charges against Mayor Adams. In her letter, which I have just submitted to the congressional record, Ms. Sassoon stated that during that January 31st meeting, Mayor Adams's attorneys, quote, repeatedly urged what amounted to a quid pro quo, describing it as a, quote, improper offer of immigration enforcement assistance in exchange for a dismissal of his case, end quote. The acting U.S. attorney has submitted a former acting U.S. attorney has submitted a letter. And Mayor Adams, do you know how many federal prosecutors total resigned rather than file the motion to drop the charges?
It was reported that 7.
7, correct. Mr. Chair, I would like to submit another letter from Hagan Scotton, his resignation letter.
Without objection, so ordered.
Mr. Scotton was an assistant U.S. attorney who also attended the January 31st meeting between your attorneys and federal prosecutors. He also resigned rather than drop the charges. In his resignation letter, he stated, and I quote, "Our laws and traditions do not allow using the prosecutorial power to influence other citizens, much less elected officials." 7 federal prosecutors, the acting U.S. attorney, the assistant U.S. attorney, all gave up their entire careers, Republicans included, then drop these charges because of what they saw transpire in that January 31st meeting. This is important not just for the city of New York, but for the people of the United States of America. Because what is being alleged is genuinely not just about what may or may not have occurred from the mayor's office and with the mayor, but what is happening at the Department of Justice. And that's what I want everyone to understand. These are not Democratic U.S. attorneys. These are Republican U.S. attorneys that have trained under Republican-appointed Supreme Court justices who have stated that there is and suggested as well, that the prosecutorial power at the Department of Justice may be influencing what is occurring. And instead of carrying that out and carrying out the erosion at the Department of Justice, they would have preferred to give up their entire careers. 7 lifelong public servants involved in law enforcement, mind you. And to that, when it comes to the fact that this may or may not have anything to do with this hearing, respectfully, Mr. Chairman, this is about specifically immigration enforcement in terms of that. And this right here is the 4-alarm fire that everyone must be paying attention to. Because if it's not just in the mayor's office of New York City, what other city, what other individual, what other municipality leader can be next? For a party that talks about states' rights and municipal rights, we must defend, yes, the rule of law, including in the Department of Justice. And with that, I yield back.
Less than 2 weeks ago, we saw Republicans vote to completely gut Medicaid, which covers nearly half of all births in the United States. And they did this despite the fact that the United States, the richest country in the world, also has the highest rate of maternal deaths among all wealthy countries. Black women in particular in America are dying at more than 3 times the rate of white women in childbirth. And we also have the highest rate of infant deaths overall compared to other high-income countries. We're also the only country that doesn't guarantee healthcare as a basic human right. Dr. Chen, as a medical provider, can you speak to why the United States has such high rates of infant and maternal mortality?
This is not actually my area of expertise, so I don't want to speak out of turn. Our Maternal Child Health Bureau does cover this issue very, very closely, and we're happy to follow up with you afterwards.
I understand. And, given this, I also think it's important that we talk about the Healthy Start program. The Healthy Start is a federally funded bipartisan program whose sole purpose is to reduce infant deaths and improve the health of pregnant women and new mothers. There are more than 115 Healthy Start programs across the country in both Republican and Democratic districts. In fact, Healthy Start was actually created by Republican President George H.W. Bush in 1991. Healthy Start programs, like the ones in my community in the Bronx, provide education for new parents so that they can safely care for their baby and one-on-one support through home visits. They ensure that families are connected to the services they need, like housing, food, transportation, and prenatal and postpartum care. Dr. Chen, your agency oversees the Healthy Start program, correct?
Yes, in the Maternal Child Health Bureau.
And as I mentioned earlier, it was created under Republican President George H.W. Bush, but since then, Healthy Start has been reauthorized several times on a bipartisan basis. The last time it was reauthorized was during President Trump's first administration. And that is because Healthy Start works. Women in Healthy Start receive earlier and more frequent prenatal care, fathers are more engaged, and babies are born healthier under this program. I'm proud to be leading the reauthorization of this with Representative Malliotakis and continuing the bipartisan tradition of this program. And I'd like to urge my colleagues to support this common sense bipartisan effort to reauthorize Healthy Start. I also want to briefly turn to another bill we are discussing today about sunscreen, which was led by my colleagues, Representatives Joyce and Dingell, which was spoken to earlier today. With respect to sunscreen, skin cancer is the most common cancer in the United States. And for people who work long hours outside, like farm workers and construction workers, adequate sun protection is essential. Yet the Food and Drug Administration, or the FDA, has not approved any new sunscreen filters since 1999. Yet our counterparts in Europe and Korea and many other markets around the world have been able to bring much more technologically advanced filters to the market. And the reason this is important is that it's not just a cosmetic issue. The easier sunscreens are to apply, and the more elegant these formulations are, then the easier and more commonly adopted they will be for people to use. If they are uncomfortable, if they smell bad, if they have all of these other issues, folks who work on farms, folks that work in construction, people who work in the sun are less likely to use them, and it elevates cancer risks for working people. And so I am deeply supportive of efforts within the FDA to help streamline a safe process for approving these new filters, ensuring, yes, we want to make sure that there aren't endocrine disruptions or any other kinds of issues, ensuring the safety of these, but surely we can come to a process where we don't have to wait 25 years between filters when we're being outperformed by the rest of the world. So I want to express my support for those efforts and ensure that we can get this moving because it's just simply unacceptable. And Dr. Corrigan-Curray, why is the United States so far behind other countries when it comes to available sunscreens?
So in some countries, these are regulated as not as drugs, but they're regulated as cosmetics. And we regulate them as drugs, and we've done some testing. We know they're systemically absorbed, and we need to, look at that data. If we had that data in hand, we would be ready to review as many as sunscreens as was submitted.
Mm-hmm. Thank you very much. And I yield back to the chair. Thank you.